Welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. In this podcast, we explore how nature, science, education, and culture can benefit all children and future generations. This is a show for educators, parents, mentors, and anyone interested in making the lives of our children, families, and communities better. So sit back, take a breath, and enjoy the show. And now for your host, Asher Cloran.
Hello and welcome to the Life Rocks podcast. Today I'm here with Victoria Kleeberg, and the title of this episode is Medicine Woman Ways for Well-Developed Healthy Children. Victoria is former nurse and home birth midwife turned nutritionist, herbalist and Buteyko Breathing Practitioner, organic store owner, and is a mother, a grandmother, and a health and freedom advocate. I'm really excited to have you on the show today. You've been a great mentor to me, and you have so much wisdom to share with our audience on the topics of health, raising healthy children, the medical system, and more. So I had to get you on the show, and I hope that we'll always have more shows together in the future, as there's always going to be lots to talk about with Victoria. Welcome to the show, Victoria. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Asher. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you. We're here in Victoria's lovely house, next to the garden that you can't see outside, which is a very special garden. I've worked in Victoria's garden once or twice before.
You have. Yes, you definitely have.
Yeah. I remember how particular you were with all of your plants and how much of a careful eye for detail, and it was very, very cool to watch someone so connected to their garden.
There's many plants in my garden that I'm used in my herbal medicine practice.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is really nice. It makes a difference when we grow the plant and then tincture it and then use it, than just buying a mixture off the shelf.
True. Yeah, you sort of.
It's the next stage in herbal medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. And you definitely practice that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Firmly believe in herbal medicine. It's nutrition in a bottle.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. Intense nutrition in a bottle.
Yeah.
So it's still food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is where my philosophy is food.
Food.
Nutrition is food. Not
Right.
synthetic vitamins. It's food.
Yeah. No, and so you have your practice here at home, and then just down the road, Victoria has the most awesome organic store
It's pretty
around the block.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, and it's a big place for people to gather and community to gather, and it's sort of a meeting place for like minds and just everything that a great whole food store should be. So I'd like to hear a little bit from you, Victoria, about how you became interested in natural health and the ancient wisdom practices that you are now so promoting in your work.
So passionate about. Okay. All right. So I actually think it probably started a long time ago and was meant to be. One of the first books I had on my shelf, along with my medical textbooks, was Herbalist How to Get Well. I still have that book today. And I practiced much out of that book. He was semi-vegetarian, but he still promoted cod liver oil, brewer's yeast, and desiccated liver tablets. And I am still promoting those today, which is incredible. So it's like I've come full circle. So, yeah, I think it was really destiny. I moved away from nursing probably about 20 years ago.
Yep.
And I wasn't happy at all with the direction it was going. I fell into the arms of home birth midwifery with a wonderful mentor, Jane Collins, and that was awesome. I did that for about 4 or 5 years, and it was a whole new world compared to hospital births, which is so interventionist.
Yeah.
It's pathologized birth pregnancy to such a degree, it's really sad.
Mm.
So home birth midwifery was amazing.
Can you just describe that definition there, pathologized birth, for the audience?
It's medicalised it. It's turned a natural process into a medical condition.
Mm.
I mean, women have been giving birth since time began.
Sure.
And it's a natural process. It's empowering for women to birth at home. Most of the complications that come from birthing are due to medical intervention.
Yep.
So it's impatience.
Yeah.
You know, time is the biggest factor that's involved in intervention. Time is just, it's rushed in hospital.
Sure.
Just don't give the woman time and space to move and do what her body. It's a dance between the baby and the mother.
Yep.
And the baby sends messages to the mother and the mother to the baby.
Yep.
It's a communication, and the hospitals don't do that.
They don't recognise the communication.
They don't recognise it. They don't. They
They tend to intervene with stuff like drugs or.
It's time, yes. If it's not following a textbook model, which is, then they'll intervene. If the contractions aren't frequent enough and strong enough, they'll put up a drip, syntocin drip, and that speeds up the contractions, doesn't give the baby time to cope. It's very sad.
Yeah.
Many augmented births, i.e. syntocin, go to caesarean sections because the baby goes into fetal distress.
Yeah.
So that's very sad. So basically, I did nutrition first, postgraduate diploma in nutrition, clinical nutrition, and again, fortuitously fell into the arms of Buteyko practitioner, Sasha, who brought the Buteyko method out to Australia. I was working in Sydney at the time, at a doctor surgery, giving intravenous vitamin C and multiple other, like B injections, etc. So that was amazing. I couldn't believe it. That was again, because we're talking the main condition being asthma, and working in children's wards and putting Ventolin on kids, and then seeing what Buteyko could do for an asthmatic it was night and day. It was huge, seriously huge, and that's when I ran into some trouble at the local hospital, Bowral Hospital.
Okay.
Using Buteyko in the hospital overnight and not giving a child Ventolin as per orders, and so that was a parting of ways.
Right.
Because I just couldn't do that. She didn't need the Ventolin.
Sure.
Buteyko breathing is amazing for asthmatics. I've taught so many children that are now adults. Never used a puffer since we started.
Amazing.
Since they did the course. It's truly amazing. So there's so many things that changed my view of allopathic medicine to natural medicine.
Yeah.
And then when we were coming down to Bowral to live, moved from Sydney, again, fortuitously, a patient said to me, Dorothy Hall's doing her herbal medicine down there.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's all I needed. So straight in, and it was the most wonderful 2-year course in herbal medicine.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really fabulous. And again, that's because I had worked for some time in Sydney for a nutritionist, and I say worked, it was voluntary. But the stack of supplements that she would,
Pharmaceutical supplements, basically.
Well, nutrients, but
Okay.
still synthetic supplements, and she would give the patient a diagnosis. She was a naturopath, and then there'd be this stack of supplements, and the final straw came when this particular young girl didn't take them, and I came out from the treating room and said to the receptionist, she couldn't afford them, could she? And she said no. And for me, my reaction to that would have been to post them straight off to her, because she had a diagnosis, but she had no treatment.
Sure.
Which is just ludicrous, really ludicrous. So I was totally disillusioned with that. Nutrition and herbal medicine really ticked the boxes.
Great.
So it was just fabulous.
So using food as medicine, using physiology as medicine, breathing and how to correct breathing.
And it's so simple, Asha. It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's not complicated.
Yeah. What's your simplest, version of Buteyko?
Breathe through your nose.
Breathe through your nose.
Just it. In and out, through the nose, at rest, during sleep, and during exercise.
Amazing.
That's it. It's all it is breathe through the nose.
Yeah. Less and less common nowadays, though, yeah?
Very much so. Yes, I went for a walk this morning. A woman ran past me, panting away through her mouth, and all I wanted to say to her was, you would do so much better if you just closed your mouth.
I know, it's true.
There is a book actually written in the 1800s called Shut Your Mouth and Save Your Life
Yeah.
by George Catlin.
Okay.
There's a few seminal books that I've discovered
Yeah.
along my journey, and that book is amazing.
Okay.
He looked at the American Indians in the 1800s.
Yeah.
He did put everything down in Western civilization to mouth breathing.
Mm.
It's a pretty huge claim.
Good claim. Yeah.
But, Victoria and England had a 50% infant mortality rate at that time.
Mm.
And the American Indians had a zero infant mortality rate.
Yeah.
He actually asked the tribal chief how many children under the age of 10 they had lost in the last 10 years. He went to the women, of course, because that was women's knowledge,
Yeah.
and came back with 3. One had been kicked in the head by a horse, one had been bitten by a rattlesnake, and one had drowned.
Mm.
No infant mortality.
No infant mortality.
No disease.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that book was huge. The next book that I found then, or the next amazing discovery, was Weston Price.
Weston Price, yeah.
Weston A. Price. His work in the 1930s, seminal piece of work.
Yeah.
He again looked at all traditional tribes, discovered that none were vegetarian, varying degrees of meat eaters,
Yeah.
but all animal foods.
Yeah.
All animal foods.
Yeah.
And that depends on the latitude. If you're around the equator, yes, you can grow more plant-based food.
Sure.
But in the northern and southern hemispheres, the Australian Aborigines and the Eskimos, it's 100%
Yeah.
animal food diet.
Yeah.
And the most striking thing with animal foods is the fat.
Yeah.
It's what people avoid. The saturated animal fats.
Yeah, because we've all been brainwashed to think that it's bad for your cholesterol and bad for your heart.
So brainwashed, and it's really sad to see because, I see a lot of patients, particularly the men, that when I say butter is good, love to eat butter.
Yeah.
I shouldn't, but yes, you can. It's the healthiest fat on the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the healthiest fat on the planet, butter. It contains so much nutrition, A, D, omega-3s, little known substance in the normal world called arachidonic acid, which you can only get from butter. Another one called CLA, again, only from butter, conjugated linoleic acid. So it's a very healthy fat.
Yeah.
Lard is another one. People used to cook their food in all the animal fats.
So what would you say to people who are still fearing
Animal
saturated fats?
It's a difficult topic to. Where do you start? There's a misconception that fat makes you fat.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing could be further from the truth. Fat does not raise your blood sugar level. Carbohydrates do. And protein will too, to some extent. So if you take the fat out of foods, whole foods, and just consume protein in high quantities, then that will raise your sugar as well. Yeah. So, and then high sugar raises your insulin levels. And insulin is actually quite a damaging hormone.
In excess.
In excess, yes. Essential. It absolutely
leads to
essential.
diabetes.
But yes, it will lead to type 2.
Blood sugar dysregulation.
About the naming.
True.
Because type 1 diabetics, and that's a good thing to point out to people, type 1 diabetics never get fat until they put on insulin.
True.
But they will stay slim, skinny even, because they don't produce
And slim doesn't necessarily mean healthy, does it?
It's actually ironic. In the old days, fat was equated with healthy, and skinny was equated with being undernourished. Yeah. But we've turned the tables on that one. At least we recognise now that being overweight is not good. But yes, so carbohydrate raises your blood sugar level, which raises your insulin level. And there's 2 hormones controlled with that. Insulin tells the body to store fat, and the other hormone, glucagon, tells the body to burn fat. Yeah. And you can't release the 2 at the same time.
Sure.
It's impossible. So the body's either in fat storing mode or it's in fat burning mode.
Yeah.
And you want to keep your blood sugar level stable. And one way to do that is to make sure that you really don't consume a big carbohydrate meal on its own.
Yeah.
Meal
Eat
should
it
be
with some
balanced.
fat and
Eat it with
protein.
fat and protein. That's
Yeah.
slower to digest, and therefore the glycemic response will be slower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good basic tip for everyone out there. So let's take that as a stepping stone to talk about
Okay.
the basics of the ancestral and
Yes.
holistic health kind of framework, but for children and families, because it's easy to maybe come up with your own diet as a a solo person or just as a couple, but when you're dealing with children and having to manage a family and everything, it's now like people will come up with excuses. I don't have time in our family to eat healthy, or we have to do what's convenient, or kids are always at parties and things, so have some amount of junk food. Like, how do you navigate the ancestral health wisdom in a family unit?
Okay, well, let's define ancestral health wisdom first. So traditional peoples, as far as families are concerned, had very nutritious food in their time, but they actually had even more specific nutritional foods for a prospective parents. Both the fathers and the mothers would consume even more nutritious foods like the organ meats,
Yep.
a lot of eggs. If they were milk-eating tribe, then milk, whole milk too, not pasteurized, of course, raw milk.
Yeah.
So they had a preconception concept of feeding good nutrition to prospective parents.
Sure.
So that's very important.
Yeah.
Then once the mother is pregnant, then again she should be consuming those
Higher
nutrient foods. And just very unfortunate, but in today's world, a lot of those foods are demonized for pregnancy.
Right.
Eggs,
Cheese,
soft milk, soft cheeses,
Yeah.
liver. It's incredible. The very foods that tell
build the hormonal.
pregnant
Yeah.
women not to eat are the
Okay.
very foods they need to sustain a pregnancy and feed that fetus.
Yeah.
So then when the baby's born,
Yeah.
you've got lactation, which
Yeah.
surprisingly actually consumes more nutrition from the mother than pregnancy does.
Wow.
Which is astounding, but it
Yeah.
does. And this is why a lot of women lose weight.
Okay.
They come back to their pre-pregnant weight
Right.
whilst they're breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And breastfeeding, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It is tragic to me, the decline in breastfeeding. And again, it's a big push from the marketing people for formulas and
Yep.
medical again. So we not only have we pathologized pregnancy, we're pathologizing even breastfeeding to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And trying
Saying the formula's better somehow.
formula's better, or the minute there's a hiccup in breastfeeding, put the baby on the formula. Yeah. And the problem with that is breast milk is strictly a supply and demand ratio.
Right.
Once you bring formula feed in, you are going to reduce the baby's demand for breast milk, and therefore the mother will produce
Stop
less.
producing.
And one of the saddest things I hear frequently is that I ran out of milk or at 6 weeks, 12 weeks. This baby has growth spurts every 6 weeks. So it's really important. It's a critical thing, as far as I'm concerned, that mothers should know, be told
Yeah.
when their baby's born, is that every 6 weeks there'll be a growth spurt.
Yeah.
And you haven't run out of milk, the baby's needs have got greater.
Right.
So rest, 24 hours rest, feed more frequently,
Yeah.
take in extra nutrition and fluids,
Yeah.
and within 24 hours,
You'll be
sometimes
fine.
12, you'll be fine. You'll be
Okay.
making more milk for that baby. I cannot stress the importance of breastfeeding.
Yeah.
So then when we move from breastfeeding on to solids,
Yeah.
one of the first criteria is no grains for the
Okay.
first 12 months. They do not have grain teeth. They're
Yeah.
the molars.
Okay.
So it's pretty clear the grain teeth come in at 2 years of age.
Makes sense.
So it makes sense. Yes,
Yeah.
it does make sense, doesn't it? One of the biggest reasons for that, apart from the lack of grain teeth, is that grains don't provide the nutrition that animal foods provide.
Sure.
And you are displacing those animal foods if you feed the baby rice or
Okay.
rice cereal, for goodness sake, and all of those foods.
Yeah.
the most important foods to bring in for a baby is liver and egg yolk.
Okay, yeah.
Not the whites, just the yolks.
Yeah.
And preferably very lightly cooked. So a very soft boiled yolk.
Yeah.
And just a quarter of a teaspoon of grated frozen liver.
Okay.
Fresh, raw liver.
Yeah.
Just grate that, have it frozen and just grate it into the egg yolk. And
would you serve that in a smoothie or just give it to the baby?
No, just give it to the baby straight up.
Okay.
From about 6 months on. And please don't start feeding before 6 months.
Yeah.
A baby has a tongue thrust
Yeah.
to stop it swallowing, the wrong things.
Sure.
And it's very clear that tongue thrust is quite powerful.
Mm.
And you put anything into a baby's mouth before 6 months and they'll push it straight back out.
Yeah.
So that tongue thrust primitive reflex pretty much disappears around the 6 month age.
Okay.
And so it's much easier to just wait until that stops. And then you don't end up with a baby just pushing everything, trying to put it
clean the
out.
floors and chairs and everything like
It's
that.
really quite funny to watch. It's a bit sad, but anyway.
Yeah.
So yes, just off the end of a spoon, egg yolk, or even off the mother's finger.
Okay.
So that's the most important. There's a couple of reasons for that, because breast milk is actually quite low in iron, and that's designed by nature.
Yeah.
And so you're giving baby them a good source of iron from about 6 or 7 months onwards.
Okay.
Another good tip. So then you just move on to things, but try to keep with the animal foods, basically. Not mashed avocado,
So
not
this is
mashed
the
banana.
foundation of the lifestyle that's going to carry on into the future.
Absolutely, yes.
But also to set children up developmentally so that they're not reaching these roadblocks. And I think, in the modern world, we're hitting all of these issues with children's health. Children's health's never been worse. There's more chronic illness in young people than ever. There's more developmental issues. I read a statistic, and this is from 7 years ago, so where we're at now is very different, but 1 in 5 children have a chronic physical condition, 1 in 7 have a chronic emotional, mental dysregulation. So, where in your perspective, if we miss these things in childhood, are they going to show up? And when do they become most obvious? Because, baby's not talking to you, and even young kids don't talk. So how does a parent recognise that maybe their 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old has some developmental delays? And
that's a tricky question. You mentioned emotional and mental disorders.
Yeah.
Let me clarify some of the vitamins and minerals that are in ancestral foods that are so vitally important.
Yeah, I love that.
Let's start with liver, because it is the queen of all foods.
Sure.
It is the most nutritious food that you can
get.
get. Yes. So liver has vitamin A, which is essential for the middle development of the face.
Okay.
So this is all your nasal passages and things. This is why traditional peoples have very nice round faces. Well-structured faces, yes. Good dental arch and perfect teeth. What Weston Price found was that they had virtually no dental caries.
Amazing.
They didn't brush their teeth. In fact, he had to scrape the slime off many of their teeth. But no dental caries. Okay. And when you look at some of the pictures of the changes in diet within one generation in his book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, it becomes incredibly obvious that we're not meant to live like that.
Sure.
Toothaches, missing teeth. There's no dentists in traditional cultures. And there's no way nature would have intended that for people, for the human race to suffer. Because dental pain is terrible.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of solutions to it.
No.
Once the teeth decay.
Yeah.
So that's your vitamin A.
Yeah.
Then there's vitamin D, which of course now is all the age. Everybody's taking vitamin D. And you only have to go out in the sun to get your vitamin D.
Yeah.
We know that.
But if you live in a cold climate, you're probably better to supplement.
Well, this is why the people in cold climates consume so much seafood.
Yeah.
Cod liver oil, fermented cod liver oil. I mean, it's quite disgusting to us, but the Scots and the Northern Hemisphere would have barrels of what we would call rotting, but you could say fermenting fish livers outside the back door.
Sure.
It is a common food amongst these people, an essential food amongst these people. Omega-3s is another very important nutrient. And you've got your B vitamins in liver. Now, that's where I'm coming because you mentioned mental health. But B vitamins govern your emotional state. Okay, so I like to say vitamin C is the structural vitamin in the body, your immune system, your collagen, your elastin. It's the cement that keeps our cells together, our body together. And we know from scurvy that the body literally fell apart. The teeth fell out, the ribs broke, capillaries leaked. Okay, with scurvy was a very disturbing disease, and totally due to a lack of vitamin C. Which, of course, no drug will fix. Wouldn't matter. We need them any drug. No vitamin C.
Can't make it.
So vitamin C is your physical vitamin, and the B vitamins are your emotional vitamins. Your zest for life. Whether you're anxious or depressed, whether you're angry, whether you're happy, all of that's governed by the B vitamins.
And do they chew through B vitamins? Like intense emotional states will
absolutely
take more?
Yes, my word, they will. And some people need high doses. The actual treatment for schizophrenia in our world is high doses of B3 and vitamin C. And we're talking 4,000 milligrams of B3. Nice.
That's a lot.
It's a lot when you're talking the normal doses around 50 to 100 milligrams. So 4,000 milligrams. Now, so for some reason or some need, they have a high B3 requirement. We don't know why. I think the world is suffering very much from a lack of Bs. Because liver used to be a regularly consumed. You know, everybody had lamb's fry for breakfast 2 or 3 times a week. And
it's
pate.
the biggest organ in the body, isn't it?
It's huge. And the nutrients it provides is also huge. So that's your B, your vitamins, and then you've got all the other ingredients in the liver, which is it's just iron, magnesium, zinc, which is also supplied in red meat as well. So so that's your liver and your egg yolk. You can move on to other foods. Then dairy is another big component that many traditional tribes lived on. Whether it was mare's milk, cow's milk, pork, goat's milk, sheep's milk, even camel's milk in some societies, and they all recognised the importance of milk, especially in its fermented form, because they had no refrigeration. So they turned it into cheese and butter and cream and kefir, fermented milk. So all of those problems. So expose your baby to those foods early. My little granddaughter, she's absolutely beautiful, home birth of course, and it's so easy to look after her. Even months ago when Jenna was still feeding, I mean she's still feeding now, it's 15, 16 months, which is lovely, but obviously not as intensely. But I could just give Noah a slice of butter and she'd just consume it, like 2 or 3 slices of butter, like cheese, and that was a meal.
Sounds convenient, right?
It's so convenient. It's so convenient. A little bit of yogurt or a few slices of butter, and cheese, of course. But the butter, just give them slices of butter. I love it.
And we live in such a dairy-averse culture nowadays.
It's really sad.
I've been watching the dairy aisle shrink down over time, and the nut milks and soy milks and the other.
And they're so dangerous. They're really dangerous. They're all. Well,
so what would you say to a parent who's like, oh, but my child's intolerant to dairy or we're allergic to dairy? Are those things like...
The biggest problem with dairy is pasteurization. Once you heat milk past 110 degrees, you destroy much of the nutrition. Most importantly is the enzymes. The lactase that is responsible for breaking down the lactose, which is the sugar in milk. Pasteurized milk is heated to 160 degrees. I mean, that's destruction. That's Fahrenheit, sorry, 160 degrees Fahrenheit.
So it's not about 80.
This is Weston Price, American. So it's literally destroying what is a healing food, a nutritious food. It's a gift from the gods.
It truly is.
It truly is a gift. It's a whole food that is so nutritious. It's got the fat in it. It's got the minerals in it. It's got the A and D in it. It's a whole complete food, just like an egg. Okay, you have 2 complete foods, and they shouldn't be tampered with. And sometimes these intolerances and allergies start because the mother has 0 intake during her pregnancy, so then the baby's not going to be exposed to it. But that can be overcome if the mother exposes the baby to it at an early age, and in small doses. There is a protocol called GAPS protocol, which is Gut-Brain Psychology Syndrome by Natasha Campbell-McBride, and that is a fantastic protocol for healing the gut of infants or children that have digestive issues or any issue at all. So we won't go down that path, but that's
but it can be healed.
They can be healed.
And
Absolutely.
Intolerances aren't these inborn or genetic things that people think they are.
No, absolutely not.
It's
Genetics is blamed for a lot of things. But our genetics do not change in one generation.
Sure.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Life Rocks is not just a podcast. It is an education foundation centered around connecting children to the magic of nature through earth sciences. As a self-funded foundation and startup, we are constantly seeking support so that we can continue our great work. So if you feel called to donate to Life Rocks, please head down to the show notes and find the relevant donation link. We accept regular money as well as cryptocurrencies. We greatly appreciate you, our Life Rocks community. Now, back to the show.
There was a fellow called Pottinger, Francis M. Pottinger. He's another contemporary of Weston Price.
Pottinger's Cats.
Pottinger's Cats, fantastic. I came across that.
Smallest, best read.
It is the best book, Pottinger's Cats. It was an experiment that was done with 2 groups of cats in large cages. We're talking a lot of cats, and it was done over 10 years. That's what's so remarkable about this experiment. And one group of cats was fed raw food, as in raw milk, raw meat, raw fish, etc.
Okay.
The other group of cats were fed cooked food.
Traditional pet food.
Traditional pet food. Well, maybe not in
Cans,
those days,
cooked,
but cooked. Everything was cooked.
Okay.
He even tried to grow crops in the bottom of the cages.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was interesting. Beans and peas and things like that. No success in the bottom of the cage of the cooked food. Cats flourished in the cage. Yeah, because it comes through the manure, of course. Within 3 generations, the cooked food cats were biting the handlers, birth difficulties, arthritis, and in the end, sterility.
Sexual dysfunction.
Totally, and so, 3 generations, the cats were infertile. 3 generations. It's incredible. The raw food cats were in the prime of health, of course. But the most telling thing about that experiment was it took 5 generations.
5 generations.
To bring the cats back to good health.
Okay.
So 3 generations to ruin it, and 5 generations to bring it back.
Wow, that's
So we've got a road to go to bring the human race back.
And I guess
to
which generation of Pottinger's Cats is our generations now? So
this book was written in the 1930s, and that statement he made, if this is true for cats, then the human race is in that terrible predicament. I can't remember his exact quote.
We're on in the industrialised foods now since the 1930s.
The 50s was the big push.
The big push,
I think the 50s was when they invented margarine and learned how to hydrogenate oils. And the press was invented, and they could press the oils out of vegetable oils.
Okay.
And that oil, when it's pressed out of those seed oils, industrialised seed oils is what we should call them, it's black and gunky. It's horrible. My husband actually went to a margarine factory some years ago before we bought the shop, and he said you could smell it from the car park.
Ooh, nasty.
So the vegetable oils they're basically extruded with a press, and then they're heated to very high temperatures. They are black, as we said, grey sludge, so they have to use colouring, bleach it, use food colouring, and ironically, the only thing that has to is legalised to be natural is the food colouring. Everything else, it's a silly world we live in sometimes.
Isn't it? And these are the fats that have been classified, the health heart.
Canola oil.
Yeah.
Safflower oil, sunflower oil.
Heart healthy fats.
Yes. they couldn't be further
from the truth.
In fact, if you look at that push, that transition from butter to margarine, it would be the pinnacle or the overriding cause of the increase in osteoporosis and heart disease. Yeah. Because vitamin K2 that's in butter pushes or allows the body to send calcium and phosphorus into the bones. Yeah. So Weston Price actually called K2 mineral activator. Yeah. So it activates the minerals. The fat-soluble vitamins are responsible for mineral absorption and protein assimilation. Yeah. So you take those fat-soluble vitamins out of foods, and when you look at them,
you can't absorb your food. That's what you're saying.
You can't absorb your food, no, and you can't utilise your proteins. Gotcha. And so eating lean meat and high-protein foods without the fat means you can't use that protein. Sure. And the minerals don't go where they're supposed to go. So if the calcium is not going into the bones, it's staying in the bloodstream. Yeah. And that's where you get your plaque, your calcium plaques from. So you've got a twofold consequence of not consuming butter. That's putting it very simply. But basically, that's what it is. The calcium is not in the bones, it's in the bloodstream. And so you have osteoporosis and heart disease. Our remedy for bone and dental decay too. Yeah. So the remedy for both osteoporosis and dental decay and heart disease is to exclude all vegetable oils and to consume cod liver oil and high vitamin butter oil. Yeah. And the high vitamin butter oil is specially formed butter oil. So that's derived from cows eating rapidly growing spring grass and autumn grass. Yeah. And it has a higher K2 content. Yeah. And so, it comes from a company called Green Pastures. Yeah. And it's brilliant. In fact, Weston Price, back in the 1930s, when he was working, when he came back home to America, he had 100% dental caries success feeding the children in orphanages with cod liver oil and butter oil.
Amazing.
100% success. Right.
And why isn't this in dentists' practice all around the world?
Good question, actually. Yeah. If anyone wants to look into that, there is a video I have seen where they show the size of a cavity, which is tiny, and then they show the same tooth, molar tooth, after the dentist has drilled it to put in a filling. Yeah, 3/4 of the tooth is gone. Oh, it's tragic.
It's
so. And I mean, there are also some herbs that will remineralise teeth too. Okay. White oak bark is fantastic.
White oak bark,
it's fantastic for remineralising teeth. And xylitol is another one that's also really good.
I use xylitol. It's gotten me out of much tooth
pain. I know, same. Xylitol chewing gum is fantastic. It's like twinging a tooth and just spend a few days. There's some amazing things around.
It is,
There really is.
Yeah, it can get you out of a fix when you've got something going on, which you're really good at, troubleshooting random little
that's probably my biggest forte here is quick remedies. We'll come to that on another program.
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on folk medicine remedies.
Okay, so that's your foods, animal fats, and the importance of animal fats. Now, there is a caveat that we must place on this. Right. Your meat and dairy need to be organic.
Sure.
It's so important. I mean, for us it goes without saying. Yeah. But for the public, we have to say it must be organic because most of the pesticides and herbicides are fat soluble. Yes. So they are actually stored in the fat of the animal. Yeah.
And so the animal's eating the grains and then they're concentrating the pesticides into their fat tissues. And then if we eat the non-organic animals,
there's a famous experiment done where, big paddock of cows, and they sprayed a big, 1 acre of it, or whatever the measurement was. Sure. But the cows literally ate to the water.
Ate around it.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah, nature knows.
Nature knows. Yeah. And this is what we need to get back to. We need to get back to nature, to whole foods. So yes, meat and dairy need to be organic, and it needs to be the bulk of your diet.
Yeah.
You know, depending on the person, everybody's a little bit different. But the fat consumption, saturated animal fats, needs to be anywhere between 40 to 80% of your diet, and that depends on your latitude to some extent, like the Eskimos, who literally 100% animal foods and fat, and your
equatorial
cultures were less so.
Like
But they
Americans and Latinos and Asians.
Yeah. So, you know, but there needs to be animal fats in your diet.
Sure.
It's so important because of the nutrients that they provide.
And if you've got that understanding that every culture around the planet had some sort of biological framework of their diet, you can figure out what a ratio might be for you and your family. Yeah, absolutely. There is a difference, though, that it does make a difference, which is interesting because in Africa it's got a range. True, yeah.
And the African Maasai, whose diet is basically milk, blood, and meat, they're definitely taller and slimmer than the African, some of the other African races that have more carbohydrate.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I've got into the longevity and all that sort of stuff, but they're definitely a better physical framework the more animal fats that they consume. Animal foods, I should say.
Yeah.
It's interesting to note that protein and fat come together in nature.
Yep.
Always, whether it's nuts, meat, dairy.
Yeah, sure.
It comes together. So separating protein and fat is detrimental.
Yeah.
We should never separate them. So that comes back to whole foods.
Yeah.
As nature provided them.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Well, I think looping back around to some of those intervention methods around childbirth that you were talking at the front, because we didn't really get to go there. As you're talking about, you know, these super nutrient-dense sources of vitamin K, which is good for your teeth and your bones and development of all of the bone structures in a growing body. So essentially, if we don't have these nutrients, like you've been saying, that as we grow, we're not going to have proper formation of our bones, and then that's, you know, going to impact us, obviously. Why are they doing, say, synthetic vitamin K shots for mothers in hospital? And what are the impacts of that, amongst other interventions?
Knackering is probably another one of those medical ironies.
Yep.
According to the reason they give is that babies are born deficient in vitamin K.
Yep.
And we're not talking K2 here, okay?
Right.
We're talking K1,
Yep.
which is your clotting
Yep.
factor. The obvious question is, if all babies are born deficient,
Right.
what's deficiency?
Yeah.
And is that not intentional?
Meant to happen, okay.
So giving a Kanakian shot is, again, not recommended, not advised. There are studies that show that childhood leukemia is related to the Kanakian shot, given vitamin K. There's a reason nature does things the way they do, like breast milk being low in iron, for instance. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
So yes, please, no vitamin K shots in
Okay,
hospital.
sure.
It's totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
Totally unnecessary. The reason they gave was there was a hemorrhagic disease of the newborn. It's called.
Yeah.
Extremely rare.
Rare. So yeah,
Extremely rare.
the minority ruling the majority, just like the backwards world.
It's a bit like the Hep B shot, you know.
Okay.
Babies aren't doing sex and drugs.
Sure.
Why do
Most
you give them-
babies. Might be a few rebel babies out there.
Maybe later in life,
Okay.
not then.
Not straight away.
So there's no reason to give. And of course, the reason given for giving Hep B to babies was because, believe it or not, they couldn't get the at-risk group to come back 3 times. That's your migrants and your prostitutes.
Oh,
That was the reason. They went,
Okay.
oh, well, if we give it to babies, then...
it's not a very good reason.
No, it's not a very good reason.
Sounds
And
like they want to
they're
sell
not
more
at risk
products.
of hepatitis at all. So...
Always trying to get that market share, aren't they?
Well, this is the unfortunate truth that medicine is, and pharmacy is not about making you well. I'm afraid to say it's not. It is about making money. They are businesses, and their end goal is to make money, not to. If anything, it's to keep you sick.
To be a lifelong customer.
Lifelong customer.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, just to add on to that, we might talk about ultrasounds in pregnancy.
Sure, please.
Again, totally unnecessary.
And this, people will be doing that to look for what sex their child is, where the umbilical cord is wrapped.
An abomination, really, to find out what sex the child is. Yeah. And one of the reasons for that is that it's, first of all, it's unnecessary. You know, you can't change it.
Is it just ego gratification of the parents?
Something, or desire, but you can't change it.
Sure.
It is what it is.
Okay.
So there's no point finding out 6 months before the baby's to be born, and possibly being disappointed if you've got 3 girls and you're wanting a boy, and you find you've got another girl.
Sure.
That emotion will be translated to the baby.
Right. It's like FOMO for the baby not getting a boy, and then
disappointment, all the emotions that come around
totally.
that.
Well said.
And then for the next 6 months, mum's carrying that emotion, and the people around her are carrying it too.
Yeah.
That's averted at birth, because the oxytocin that's released at birth is such a powerful hormone of love that the mother will fall in love with that baby regardless of its gender.
Okay. Yep.
I shouldn't say gender; it's the wrong word. Regardless of its sex.
Yeah.
Biological sex. And that's the problem with finding out early.
Sure.
So that's one thing, yes, finding out the sex of the baby. Totally unnecessary reason.
Yeah.
The second one is confirming dates. Again, totally unnecessary.
Right.
The mother usually knows when her last period was. Yeah. And it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The third one would be to check growth, gestational growth. Well, again, it's unnecessary.
Yeah.
The measurements that we do as midwives and obstetricians on the belly determine the growth.
Sure.
You can do an ultrasound if you think there is a problem.
Right.
Okay?
As a last
resort. You know, it's like so many things are done in medicine. The glucose tolerance test is probably one of the most unnecessary tests that are being done. I mean,
how's that performed?
My children go from basically 39 down to 30.
Yeah.
I did not have a glucose tolerance test done. And in fact, for my 4th baby, I've had 3 antenatal visits. 3.
Yeah.
It just worked out that way because we were moving, and so I did the 3 when we moved to the new location and just before Jenna was born. The glucose tolerance test is an incredible strain on the pancreas. You're given whatever it is, a litre of fluid, sugary solution.
Yeah.
And then they measure your blood sugar level. Hello?
Right.
You know, like, it's an insane test.
Yeah.
So it's stressing the mother's pancreas, it's stressing the fetus's pancreas for no reason at all. The indications or signs and symptoms of gestational diabetes, or any diabetes for that matter, is so obvious you don't need a test to detect something that's not there.
No.
You really don't. Increase thirst, increase urination,
yeah.
and large for dates, big for dates. That's it. And so if the midwife suspects that, then maybe you can. But there's no reason to do a glucose tolerance test. Sure. There's no reason at all. You would then advise the mother on correct nutrition. To change.
What's the dates?
The gestational, what did I say?
You said large for dates.
Large for dates. Okay, so whatever stage in the pregnancy she's at, the baby, the measurement from the pubic bone to the top of the fundus, the top of the uterus, is greater than it should be.
Okay.
But again, that's an arbitrary figure too.
Yeah.
Because baby's growth outside of the womb and inside is not linear.
Yeah.
Our growth is not linear.
No.
Children grow in spurts.
Seasons.
In spurts, you know. There's a joke, you know, when the teenager comes down for breakfast in the morning, he knocks the milk carton over. It's because he's grown an inch overnight, and his arms are a little bit longer.
There he is in space.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, so they can go to bed at one size and wake up in the morning bigger. It's true.
Yeah.
It sounds funny, but it's actually true. And every teenager goes through that clumsy
growth.
And again, like I said with babies, 6 weeks, every 6 weeks they have a growth spurt.
Yeah.
So it's not linear. It's, you know, pause and then a sudden growth spurt. And the same goes. So even measuring gestational, you know, dates is, you know, you wouldn't do it off one reading. You know?
Right.
You do it off successive readings. So the glucose tolerance test, an unnecessary intervention.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because the obstetricians just make it routine. And it's completely unnecessary. Ultrasounds, No pregnancy needs an ultrasound.
Okay.
You could go through an entire pregnancy without an ultrasound.
And what would the harms be of an ultrasound?
Oh, that's a good question. People need to do their research on ultrasounds. Babies do not like them.
Yeah.
You know, it's sound frequency
Yeah.
through water.
Yeah. So you're like getting blasted with a big, loud
Yeah.
vibration.
And they're so intense these days. The 3D ones, they are very intense. It's not good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of research on
Okay.
the damaging effects of ultrasounds. And ironically, they're more dangerous as the baby approaches term.
Right.
Because the fluid is less
Okay.
and the baby's head is bigger.
Yeah.
Okay? So
it's more
intense.
Yeah.
So ultrasounds. So, my best advice for pregnancy is the less intervention, the better. No drugs during pregnancy. And I mean zero.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero.
Food is medicine.
Food is medicine. We're all familiar with the thalidomide disaster, and there's several others. DES was another one that caused genital deformations and infertility in the offspring of the mothers that took DES during their pregnancy. DES was a hormone, estrogen-based hormone, to maintain pregnancy.
Oh, yeah.
Disastrous.
Yeah, and estrogen-based therapies are usually disastrous.
Yeah. They are. HRT and all the rest. And thalidomide, of course, we know the deformities that ensued from that, and that was just for morning sickness,
Okay.
So no drugs during pregnancy, no flu shots,
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
during pregnancy. It's sacrosanct.
Nature knows what to do. Nature's got wisdom. The bodies can do the
Body
right
is
thing.
awesome.
Yeah, if it's given the right.
Pregnancy should be just a natural process that every woman has the right to enjoy.
Yeah.
Unfettered.
So what's it been like being not only a mother yourself, working as a midwife, now to being a grandmother, and seeing so many generations come up in this modern world? What's the difference between being a mother and a grandmother through the lens of a health practitioner?
Well, the first thing I was going to say was time. That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I spend every Wednesday with my second grandchild, daughter. They are both amazing children, both home births, both unvaxxed.
Yeah.
And their presence is just incredible. They're just present. It's probably the easiest, the best way to sum it up. They're focused, they're present, they're happy.
And is that
they're never sick.
Yeah.
Never sick. Noah
Amazing.
is incredible. She might get a bit of a sniffle or a cough, but it goes within days. And my kids are amazing.
Yeah.
They've grown up with my belief systems.
Yeah.
And right from birth, Jenna was popping vitamin C powder into Noah's mouth if there was the slightest sign of problem. And that's another thing I wanted to say about raising children is forget the sanitation. Like, be unhygienic.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
It starts, the biome that a baby and a child develop.
Yeah.
The baby inherits the biome from the mother.
Right.
That's the first thing to say. Vaginal birth. That's why vaginal births are so important over cesarean sections. They inherit the biome from the mother. That's the first thing. And then from then on, their biome comes from the environment.
Yes.
So if you sterilise everything
Everything.
and spray everything, so they'll pick up their biome from the toys they play with that have not been sprayed with a toxic disinfectant spray. From the dummy that falls on the floor and mum picks up, gives a quick suck and pops into the baby's mouth.
Yeah.
You don't need to be sterile around babies. They need that biome.
Yeah, I love that.
Like pies, playing in the dirt.
Dogs.
Let the dog lick the baby's face. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Get a few extra probiotics. Yeah. So we live in a really phobic culture where everything's sterilised and the public seems to place a lot of value. They think that health mostly comes from hygiene and staying away from bad things rather than doing good things.
We live
for
in
your
a
health.
a germ theory world, not a terrain theory world.
Mm.
To sum it up,
So that's a big rabbit hole. We could
that's a big rabbit hole. Yes,
Yeah.
we could go down. Yes, it's a very big rabbit hole.
But basically,
It comes down to your environment,
yeah,
not your genes,
yeah,
not the germs.
totally.
It's the environment in which you grow and raise children.
Mm. And environment includes the foods you have access to and the medicines that you're able to work with. And yeah.
One thing a mother can do
Yep.
is homeopathic course.
Oh, yeah.
It's invaluable. You
Okay.
can do no harm with homeopathics at,
Sure.
that level. First aid homeopathic, a weekend course.
Yeah.
Or get a homeopathic book and a kit.
Great.
They're brilliant. And they're fabulous because you can do no harm. The other two things that I would suggest that every family have,
Yeah.
raising children,
Yeah.
is a stock pot and an ice cream maker.
Okay.
Two important utensils. You don't need anything else in the kitchen.
Right.
Make a stock every weekend
Yeah.
and cook everything in that stock during the week.
Yeah.
Start with chicken stock, it's really easy.
Yeah.
Okay? And then cook everything in it.
Yeah.
If you cook rice in water, you've got a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
Potatoes in water, you've got a carbohydrate.
Yeah.
If you cook them in stock
Yeah.
by the absorption method,
Yeah.
like risotto, for example, you've got a balanced meal.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you can sit down to a bowl of rice that's been cooked in stock.
Yeah.
Over 2 years, not under 12 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, stock pot, cook everything in stock.
Yeah.
Everything, your vegetables, your soups, your casseroles. And in fact, I don't use water in my kitchen.
Mm.
Once I've made my stock pot, then the tap
Used
is
for
irrelevant.
everything. Okay.
It's used for everything. Ice cream maker, commercial ice cream, disaster.
Disaster. There's no good ice cream out there anymore.
No, there isn't. And the softer the ice cream, the more antifreeze it has in it too.
Okay.
Okay, and so if you make your own ice cream, it's rock hard
Yeah.
when you take it out of the fridge. You
Yeah.
have to let it sit for a few minutes, right? That's because there's no antifreeze in it.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
All commercial ice cream has antifreeze,
Yeah.
which is propylene glycol.
Gums and fillers and
yeah, and the rest as
soy.
well, all soy, yeah, etc. Yeah, so ice cream,
Okay.
cream, egg yolks, and maple syrup.
Mm.
3 very nutritious foods. Now, there's nothing wrong with whole sugars like honey, maple
Yeah.
syrup,
Fruit
rapidura,
sugars.
coconut sugar.
Okay.
They're all whole sugars, still complete with all their minerals.
And Victoria's a fantastic cook, by the way.
Ah,
She throws a Christmas lunch at the store once a year, and
yes,
I'm
we do.
always trying to get there because it's really delicious food.
It's good food. But you start with good ingredients. You can't
It
help
helps. Yeah.
It's simple cooking,
Yeah.
So cook everything with stock. So ice cream, yes, if you make your own ice cream with cream, eggs, and maple syrup, or cream, eggs, and frozen berries, whatever, your child can sit on the floor and eat it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else? They're the 2 most important things: a stock pot and an ice cream maker.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
2 good investments.
it sounds like I'm definitely going to get an ice cream maker once I've got a house to put it in.
Yeah. We all love ice cream.
Yeah, we all love ice cream. It was
We all love
my
ice cream.
favourite.
And to know that it's, a nutritious food, again,
Yeah.
this is the thing. I've had so many patients, I'm saying, it feels like coming home,
Mm.
coming back to,
I'm allowed to eat butter again.
oh,
right?
let's eat butter
Let's
and
eat ice
cream and eggs and bacon. Naturally smoked bacon, of course.
Yeah.
But again, and to drink glassfuls of raw milk is just out of this world.
Heavenly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, it's nutrition to be enjoyed, and easy nutrition. But you have to find your sources,
Okay.
and that can be your local farmers. Pate is another really good food. Learn to make pate.
Yep, making them as tasty.
Yeah, I was feeding Noah the other day with teaspoons. She was taking teaspoonfuls of pate. I was
Yeah.
so pleased.
Nice. It's been an awesome show, and we're approaching the end.
Mhm.
I'd love to ask you a question that we've been asking everyone on the podcast, which is, what is your wish for future generations?
Well, obviously the first one is a pregnancy with no interventions.
Great. It's a good start to life.
And pregnancy to be taken out of the hands of obstetricians
Mm.
and put into the hands of midwives.
Great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to see home birthing to just take off.
Yeah.
And to become the norm. That would be incredible. So that's number one. Number two would be a clean, healthy environment with good, nutritious food for kids. No drugs.
Yeah.
No Panadol, please. No Panadol with children. It's so detrimental. Panadol destroys glutathione, which is the liver's number one antioxidant. It's a disastrous medication. All drugs are. All drugs are. So that would be nice. I'd love to see children being raised by families and not in daycare centres.
Yeah.
It's so detrimental to the kids.
Yeah, that's fair
They
enough.
should be raised in families with a mum and dad.
Yeah.
And just a note on that, it's the mother is the baby's caregiver, at least for the first 6 months of life.
Yeah.
They are still a unit. There's a word in Africa called mama toto, which is mother and baby. They don't have a word that separates the two.
Right.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Mother and baby together for at least for the first 6 months.
Yeah.
So, mother is nourisher and comforter, and father is protector of them both.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. It's very traditional.
That's good.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
And children should be given space and time.
Yeah.
Time to complete what they're doing before you come on, we've got to go.
Yeah.
And the space to have a tangy if they want it.
Yeah.
So allow them to have their emotions.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's been incredible watching because you don't pay this much attention to your own children. It's unfortunate to say.
Because you're in the moment.
You're in the moment, and I had 4, so I probably had that time with my first, but after that,
You're swept up in it.
you're swept up in what you're doing. But to sit and watch, it makes you very proud of your kids, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They're both doing very well. Alice, Henry's just incredible. He's now 7.
Yeah.
And that's, when you say what would I like to see for the future, that's what I want to see.
Great. Yeah, I love that.
We've got a few parents in the shop, obviously, and their kids it's amazing again, the difference between, I'm sorry to say, but between the Backs and unbacked baby is huge.
Yeah,
it's really huge.
The public, the mainstream public.
Yeah, the mainstream public babies and the ones that are being fed, nutritious foods.
Yeah.
They're so switched on.
Yeah, there is a difference.
There is a big difference, yeah.
So how can people work with you? Would you do phone consultations if they aren't in the area?
I can do phone consultations. I prefer the first one to be face-to-face.
Face-to-face? So Victoria
Sydney,
lives in Bowral, the Southern Highlands, New South Wales, Australia.
Yes.
So come and visit the store.
I'll come down, Busy days are Mondays and Thursdays, that's our market days, and so there's quite a congregation happening at the store.
Yeah.
And I'm there most days. I do consults here on a Tuesday and Friday.
Yeah.
And but the store is what we intended it to be, is a nutritional hub.
Yeah.
We should really be a Weston Price chapter.
Yeah.
I couldn't be bothered filling out the paperwork
Sure.
for it, which is not great. But that's what we are.
Yeah.
We are a Weston Price / Gaps store.
Yeah.
We make the bone broths, but we sell the bones to make your own bone. And we encourage people to make their own bone broths. So the store is really literally centred around Weston Price philosophy, Weston and Price. They've really pushed the real milk agenda in America. When they first started in about 2000, there was like a handful of raw milk dairies. Yeah. And there's thousands now. Yeah. Thousands. I wish we had a similar movement in Australia. Yeah. The raw milk is banned in Australia. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. It's insane. Yeah. I don't know if people are aware, but in Australia, all imported, all fresh produce now is being irradiated. Yeah. There's just a recent law that's been passed. Yeah. But all fresh fruit and veggies are being irradiated.
And if you think anything that comes in from overseas is going
that
through the
scanners.
definitely
irradiated, yes.
So
all
even if it's organic,
produce, yes. But I didn't realise that Australian produce was as well.
Yeah, it's
Which is
unfortunate.
tragic.
Yeah, there's lots of weird food practices that Australia does that we don't know about necessarily. It's not, we don't have to be told.
That's another area you could look into, is truth in labelling.
Yeah.
It's, that's one of the reasons that organic is certified organic. Pretty much guarantees that there's nothing illegal,
like that going on.
There's nothing in it. Like the labelling laws in this country is really bad. If something's under 50%, it's allowed to go. You don't have to put it on the label, etc. That sort of thing. So truth in labelling is tricky. There's one more thing I haven't mentioned, and that's sea salt.
Oh yeah.
Salt is a really important
Super
food.
vital. Yeah.
Not table salt. There's aluminium in table salt. There's all sorts of things.
Whole sea salt.
But whole Celtic sea salt, damp, grey, and coarse, is it's essential. Chlorine or chloride, the only available source for chloride is sea salt, and you need the chloride to make hydrochloric acid.
Yeah.
So if you don't have sea salt in your diet, you will have digestive problems.
That's right.
Deficiency of hydrochloric acid.
So true.
So that's important.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. It's been amazing.
Oh, thank you, Asher. It's been really interesting.
And look forward to
Appreciate
diving.
the invitation.
My pleasure. Yeah. And let us know in the comments and the feedback on the show if there's anything that you really want to hear more about, because we obviously covered a broad range of things. But if you leave us a note or a comment, we might take that as inspiration to dive deeper into a topic. So thanks for watching. Life rocks.
Thank you so much for listening to the Life Rocks podcast. If you enjoyed the show, then leave us a review. We'll be back soon with more inspiring content, and in the meantime, remember, life rocks.